Minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank Chairman Hensarling, the gentleman from Texas, for his leadership on this issue and on so many regulatory reform issues that we'll be addressing this week and in the future. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to sponsor and bring to the floor H.R. 78, the SEC Regulatory Accountability Act. This legislation fits perfectly with the theme of the week here in the House to advance key regulatory reform ideas as a change of pace from the outgoing administration. For the past 8 years, the amount of regulatory burden that has been placed on Americans and small businesses has been crushing. In 2015, federal regulation cost almost $1.9 trillion. That is nearly $15,000 per household in a hidden compliance tax. The Obama administration issued over 600 economically significant rules, which are those that have an economic impact of over $100 million. And as a result of this wave of regulations, we have been part of the slowest economic recovery in our lifetimes. We now have an opportunity to enact policy that ensures smart regulation going forward so that we are doing things in the best and most efficient way. The people have spoken, Mr. Speaker. Business as usual in Washington is over, and it is time to do things differently. There is, indeed, a better way. This legislation is really about what everyday Americans do when they're making major life decisions in weighing the costs and the benefits, the pros and the cons. Whether it's buying a car, buying a home, deciding whether to take out a loan to go to school, everyone must consider the core economic factors when making important life decisions. The SEC Regulatory Accountability Act places statutory requirements on the SEC when issuing rulemaking that ensures that first they identify the problem that regulation is trying to address. Second, they weigh the cost and benefits to ensure that the benefits justify costs of compliance. And thirdly, they identify and assess whether there are any available alternatives to rulemaking. Additionally, this bill contains a provision that requires the SEC to review its existing regulations every 5 years at the minimum to determine whether any such regulations are outdated, ineffective, or excessively burdensome, as well as requiring the SEC to modify, streamline, repeal, or even expand regulations based on that review. As a regulator of our capital markets, the SEC has an immeasurable influence on our economy and the ability of small business and entrepreneurs to be able to access capital in order to innovate, grow, and most of all, create jobs. I strongly believe that this legislation is nonpartisan and common sense, and what our government regulators should have been doing in the first place. The American people deserve a break from the irresponsible regulation they have grown accustomed to over the past 8 years. There is a better way. I ask my colleagues to support this common sense piece of legislation and urge passage of it through the House, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady from Missouri.